People power growth, but recruiting and onboarding are expensive, exhausting, and absolutely overwhelming. I've been there, and it doesn't have to be this way. Welcome to Hire and Empower. I'm your host, Molly McGrath. Join me as we interview leaders who care about their teams and distill powerful lessons from them. This show is sponsored by H&E, helping organizations to find their best hire and empower them for success. Learn more at hiringandempowering.com. Okay, let's do this. I'm so excited about having another rock star attorney joining us today. We are going to be talking with Spera Law Group here, and we are going to be talking with Andrew Legrand. So I'm so excited about we, in typical fashion, start talking before we hit the record button on our podcast. I'm like, wait, stop. Let's just hit record because I'm on a mission. I am on a freaking mission right now to talk to attorneys who are really progressive in their mindset and their thinking and their culture and their core values, the way that they see their law practice as a business, the way that they are really wanting to retain employees, attract employees, create an environment that is fun, collaborative, and that people wake up every morning and just cannot wait to be a part of. And Andrew and I were sitting here speaking, and he's like, well, let me tell you a little bit about our core values. I'm like, wait, stop. Let's hit record. I want you to talk about it because today we are talking about this whole thing. And I know everybody probably are so sick of hearing me on my soapbox about embracing a hybrid, remote, virtual, progressive model, especially in the legal space that traditionally is very old school, traditional brick and mortar. And one of the things that Andrew was sharing with me, and he's going to tell us about his practice and his backstory about, the virtual setting prior to the pandemic and having this progressive law firm. One statement that he said was, it's more than a lifestyle, it's actually an employee retention tool. And that's what I want to talk about today, because in this market, I'm personally so sick of hearing and seeing all these articles about the employee great resignation, about, COVID, the pandemic, when the recession, when things go back to normal. Like, the boats are burned on all that shit. Like, it's not going back to the way it was. And I want you guys are sick of hearing from me. You'll be like, well, you don't own a law firm. Well, no, I don't. I've only coached and recruited and consulting them for 20 plus years. I want you to hear from successful lawyers, successful law firms that are actually doing this. So, Andrew, I would love for you to kind of kick us off. Tell us a little bit about your practice, and in particular, where we were about to head before I hit the record button, about your core values.
Sure. So I started the Spera Law Group, or what's become the Spera Law Group, right out of law school. I went to law school in 2008. Started law school back when law school was go to law school and take on loans and get a job and you pay them back, no problem. Money's everywhere. I was kind of the first class that came out of that first year of law school and realized that the Great Recession had kind of changed the legal marketplace pretty significantly. And realized that we were competing very hard for summer internships, and I did a few jobs where I was I was going to law school in New Orleans, and every day had to wake up and drive downtown and go to the 20th floor of some building and sit at a computer and not really talk to anyone all day. So basically, I was in law school realizing that it was hard to find a job, and the jobs that were available weren't really that exciting to me. So I started looking at how I could start my own law firm. And read about that and found a lot of good resources on that and became confident that I could. And so once I made that decision, it was, okay, well, what would that look like? And in working in those law firms, always saw these massive rooms full of paper, and just thought about how much money it was costing them to buy boxes and sort those boxes and store those boxes and then destroy and move those boxes eventually too, right? So very quickly came to the decision of, okay, well, this law firm that I'm going to build from the ground up needs to leverage technology, needs to be paperless. And of course, I was a young lawyer without any clients and not very much money. So buying an office was, maybe a practical thing. Renting an office was not a great idea at the time. How could I basically start this from my parents' house? So that's what I did. So, the idea of being virtual was kind of part just, hey, this is a good idea. Why not? But also kind of out of necessity at the time too. And so started out kind of there. And so, I've kind of used the term remote first. I don't remember when exactly it was, but pretty quickly I realized, I want to be virtual. I want to be remote first. But at the same time, I don't necessarily want to be cheap in the sense that I don't want our law firm to look like, the lawyer that uses Gmail that works at a coffee shops and meets clients there. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I wanted to deliver a quality of service and a perception of service that rivaled the white shoe law firms in town, but without the expensive infrastructure. So,
and I'll tell you, your law firm will have this in the show notes, SperaLaw.com. It communicates it already. You have super lawyers, 10,000 small business owner, alumni, Louisiana State Bar Association, New Orleans Chamber, economic development, CEO roundtables, 10.0 Avo rating. You have it all there. Your website's beautiful. You've done a phenomenal job there. Absolutely. I love it. I mean, and you didn't want to have that essence of, working in a coffee shop, one man band, whatever it might be. So right off the bat from a digital space, you're definitely hitting and exceeding the mark with having that professional visibility and presence and branding out there. I would love, so you're already emulating it here. You already have it in your mindset and within your thinking that because you are remote, the way that you interact with your business is just that. If you're sitting in, the 70th floor paying 10 grand a month for rent with the 500-pound marble desk in front of you, right? You already have that mindset. So talk to us a little bit about how you emulate that within your core values and use that as number one, a lifestyle, but also as an employee retention tool.
Yeah. So, the other part of the remote model was I grew up as my father was a lawyer, he did insurance defense for a long time. And I kind of realized, hey, we would go on these nice vacations and he's got a large firm, has been very financially successful, is getting ready to retire. But one of the things I kind of realized is we would go on vacation and it was always kind of limited to 7 days. And I would always see him take work with him. And I kind of realized, being a lawyer, it really, one of the downsides is it is hard to disconnect for a long period of time. It's not, a profession where you can really kind of hang it up as easily as you can in other professions. So I realized that if I wanted to travel and live other places, we would have to be virtual and leverage all that stuff. And again, also mixing in that idea of let's not reduce the quality of service here. Let's continue to be an A+ firm, but with a lower presence. So around 2016, hired the first employee, and I think we started working on our core values probably in 2018, 2019. We have really four core values, and I think the first three I'll kind of go over, not too relevant to employees, but they're geek out. So use technology and leverage technology to make your job easier and less stressful. Communicate with clients, with each other. Just over communicate. I've never seen a client yet. Our goal is to get clients to tell us we communicate too much. It doesn't mean we want to send annoying emails, but hey Molly, this is the status. Molly, this is the status. Just kind of repetitive. We've never had a client complain about over communication. I tell our team the day that happens will be kind of a day to celebrate. That's not something that's a bad thing. Third core value is pay attention to the small things. Our clients tend to notice when we spell their name wrong or we use the wrong pronoun or something along those lines that's relatively minor, but it causes big problems. And our fourth core value is kind of what I was getting into with you, is live your best life. In this profession in particular, where lawyers are known to be burned out and stressed and that sort of thing. And so the idea of this core value of live your best life is we really got to put people first and ensure that we are taking breaks, we are taking time off, we are, recently it's been used. One of my employees is a mother with a young daughter in her 20s, and the young daughter in her 20s is gone through a nasty breakup recently, and this paralegal's had to take some time off towards the end of the day. She was saying at 3 o'clock, my daughter came over bawling, crying about her breakup, and we see that as a live your best life is kind of giving people this flexibility to use technology, to work from home, to be a little bit less disconnected from the office, with the idea that you can weave life into your work world and still be productive.
Mm. Oh, repeat number 3. I missed number 3, your third core value.
I think it was pay attention to the small things.
Okay, great.
Basically the idea, I think the example there is one time I produced a document. If we produce a will for somebody and I call this person who identifies as a female, we use male pronouns, they have no clue whether or not the will is right. Like, let's be fair. The clients are expecting us to do that, but did we misspell their name or use the wrong pronouns there, and they see that. And so to us, it's those small things that people judge lawyers by. Yes, we want to get the legal document, the big picture things right, but paying attention to those small things is where people, I think, really criticize businesses, is you miss that small thing. And the perception, I think, to most customers is when you miss that, it becomes a bigger problem than it really is.
Wow. Your core values, just even thinking about them, and I love what you say, it's more than a lifestyle. So you have your dad, I always hear from attorneys constantly, why'd you go to law school? And the number one answer I do get, mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, cousin, what have you, uncle, very influential. Mentor, role model, was a lawyer at one point, or they have a personal story of a heartbreak that happened through their family that made them want to go into service, justice, all that. But you saw that in lifestyle was very important to you prior to the pandemic, and you emulated that in your core values. And it's really the story you just told about your employee, breakup, single mom, that is real. And by you, number one, having it in your core values and acknowledging it, having the upfront conversation about what's going on, et cetera, and what can we do to support you, I have to believe this is massively impacting in a positive way your production, your productivity, your client experience, and all that, because your employee really sees not only the employee that it's happening to, but when you're doing your daily huddles or your weekly team meetings or however you communicate, Teams, Slack, however it happens, that we are all like naming the things that are going on in our personal life to live this value of live your best life. And if it's all about the KPIs, the billable hour, about making money, about the life cycle of the file and all that other shit that people are constantly beating in their head are the only measuring stick for a successful law firm, then, I have to imagine, and I'd love to hear like what you see from anchoring to these core values consistently and what it's doing for your bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess it is a hard thing to measure, right? But I can at least attest to just the idea of this, of how the employees respond to that is always in a positive way. And I guess as a manager, it's helpful too. It can be easy as a manager and not inconceivable to hear some managers say, oh, well, your family member's having this problem, like get over it and need you to work, right? But I think the core value of like live your best life, it's like, okay, well, this employee's asking for time off to deal with this personal issue. And it's a very, it's an easy reminder to say, well, if I'm going to live that core value, I need to manage part of that core value as well, right? It's not just operate with the clients under that, but how I manage the employees. So it's a good reminder to kind of, I want to make sure if we're going to claim this as a core value, I also need to embrace that with how I manage the employees. And so it's always a good reminder, like making a decision about one thing or another. How does this operate? Kind of go back to that. And I can tell, I can say too, I think, looking at this particular paralegal is a great example. And when we were hiring her about a year ago, she had a ton of experience, had worked at a bunch of big law firms, and was looking for a new opportunity and something else, and had been kind of down on law firms. I'm sure her stories that she told me in the hiring process, the stories you probably heard before, I was told this in the hiring process with a big law firm and that happened. And just kind of the, I don't know, broken promises that come from her past employers. So I was able to get a very experienced paralegal, someone who's worked in the legal field longer than combined any of the attorneys here, and was able to really be a great asset to the team. And I think, having these core values and being able to live those and give her remote work too, which we haven't even gotten to, was one of the ways we were able to retain her, even though, we're paying her well, but definitely not at the top of the market. So I think that's probably where these core values come in the most, is if you can have these and live these core values. I think one of the ways that is I'm a firm believer that people aren't fully motivated by compensation, by the money compensation, but having this in place allows you to get workers for better workers for cheaper than if they're working at a sweatshop that doesn't respect them at all, and they might want more compensation just to stay there.
Amen. I'm telling you, even just hearing your tonality, your cadence, your approachability, your, just humanness and approachability of how I know, before even we recorded, and just even hearing your mindset and how you view your practice, your people, all that. People, to your point, I do interviews all day, every day with candidates and then with law firms. It's not, I've had people take $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year paychecks, walk away from partnership tracks, walk away from, the carrot that's dangled that if you stay for 5 years, I'm going to pay off all your law school loans, for just exactly as you told, for being with somebody who's a leader of your caliber. That I always tell people, you're responsible for the energy you bring in a room, and you're responsible for the energy that you leave in the room. So often I'll do interviews and I'll facilitate them, find a rock star candidate, introduce them to the law firm, hop in a Zoom room. I'll attend, or my recruiters will attend. And after we do a debrief with the candidate, that's part of our process. And they're like, I can't put my finger on it, but no, that is not a firm that I want to work for. And I get that it's more money or Cadillac benefits or what have you, but to your point, it's people, you're hiring human beings first and foremost. We spend most of our waking hours at work, and the more and more and more that we are becoming a conscious, and I'm not talking about political conversation or anything, but as a human race, pandemic forced us all to sit on our couches and get deeply curious. The average person is spending 16.5 hours a day online. No, they weren't just watching Netflix. They were taking online courses. They were, I just watched a YouTube video about this yesterday where everyone's bitching and complaining about, nobody service industry. We don't have anyone that wants to work, what have you, because people went and realized during the pandemic, it was the highest rate of entrepreneurship, where they're like, all right, if I'm going to make $100 a week or what have you, but I can work until midnight every night, run myself ragged, have people treat me like crap, what have you, or I could start an online course or a dog walking business, and I can make $500 a week and actually be out in the sunshine. And people are looking at I love that one of your core values is live your best life, which that's a term that people will always say. I always say about my son, he's 20 years, he's a junior in college. I'm like, oh, he's living his best life. But he is, because everything's in alignment. To your point, let me just paint this picture, because for me, it's super important. And I think it's important for our attorney and employee listeners to hear this. What that means, all right, the paralegal struggling, we're on a team meeting. You have the business owner here who is leader of the ship, and you have Andrew having the conversation, and everything's on the table. We're like, okay, Susie's struggling. This is what's going on with her. She's got to take some time off or what have you. For me, if I was a member of your team, part of living my best life is I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. So I'm a natural caretaker. I have a service-based heart. Part of my living my best life is helping out other people. It's not just all about me.
Oh,
So if
wow.
I'm in this team meeting and I'm hearing that Susie's struggling, and here's Andrew as the attorney and the owner naming it, bringing it to the table, and no shame, blame, or anything of that nature, and being like, our number one for core value here, guys, is to live our best life. So what can we do to help you, Susie? I'm going to raise my hand and be like, oh my God, Susie, this is what I'm going to do for you, because this completely fills me up. And it's part of my personal mission, vision, values, everything is to like help others and to be a difference maker. So there's so many multipliers, like out of that, just one example of really, truly, people create all these core values and then they go to TJ Maxx home and buy all these, you know, quotes, and they put them all over their freaking website and they put them everywhere. Oh, family first. And we're this. No, like your core values are real, they're raw, and you guys are living them.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is I think that core value and the idea of virtual, it kind of came from a selfish standpoint in the sense of I, as the owner, want to live my best life. I don't want to be tied to a desk. I don't want to be working 2,400 hours a year, and I don't want those things. And I think one of the realizations that I kind of backed into was the realization that um, I need to think of myself as an employee of the firm, and if I, as the owner, kind of build a firm that I would want to work at, then naturally that's going to attract other people who want to work here. So I think that was kind of a key thing that I didn't really realize until I didn't start with that mindset. I wasn't against it, but I think I kind of discovered that by accident, is that really of like, what would I want? I want to live in a law firm that lets me take 2 weeks off if I need to do that, right? So let's make that a core value. And if I can't just reserve that for me as the owner. If I reserve that for me as the owner, well, for me to take 2 weeks off, I need employees to let that happen.
Oh my
So by
goodness.
kind of thinking of myself, like, well, if I want to do it, then they kind of need to be able to do it too. I have a very hard time understanding how, I could take, me as the owner, I'm gonna go away for 30 days. But you as the employee, nope, you can't take time off to deal with your family, or, you only get a week off at a time. But it's kind of got to be, a mutual agreement there.
You said so much there that, oh, wow. First and foremost, I think I would flip the script on it is not selfish. It's actually really, really clear on the type of business that you want to create. And that you also said something so important, that I'm also an employee. I'm a member of this team. And the saying is, so go the coach, so go the coachee. So I'm leading this ship. I'm the creator of this thing. And so I get to create it. That's why I hung my own shingle, because I want to have the freedom, the autonomy, and then build a business that I'm super excited about, and that I'm creating the rules and the framework that I want. But also I'm a member of the team. I'm an employee. And if I want to travel, or I want to have autonomy, or I want to have flexibility, how in the hell am I going to build a business and then offer somebody 5 days a week of PTO, where they have to work for me for 5 years and then they get 10 days of PTO
Right.
and all this other crap? Because I talk to attorneys every day, and I'm like, I'm not kidding you. I am like goosebump from top of my head to the bottom of my toes, because you said something that I really want our listeners to hear. So often people start a law firm in a business, right? Start to make some money, get some clients, get some employees. You start to go to all these coaching programs. You find all these gurus that are teaching you, how to really run this thing like a business, scale, leverage, sell, blah, blah, blah. And, the entrepreneur, all right, attorney, makes the shift into an entrepreneur, and then they start making statements like, I want to replace myself in the business. I don't want to have to be in the conference room anymore. I want to travel more. I want to start going to different business building conferences and what have you, but I need employees to replace me, and I need employees to help me up level, to optimize, to leverage, and what have you. And then they hand them this offer that is a bunch of bullshit. That's like, you got to be chained to a desk. And basically you're saying, I don't want to do this crap anymore. I don't want to be stuck in the office anymore, but here I'm going to hire you and treat you like an employee and sell you like this 5 days a week PTO and what have you, because I want to get out of here. And they're doing it completely backwards. And that's why they can't grow and scale. And that's why they can't retain employees. And I love, whether this was by design, default, what have you, definitely was not from my perspective, hearing you, it's brilliant. It's definitely creative disruption. And it absolutely is like, if I was in an interview with you right now, I don't care if you're offering me $15 an hour and I'm used to making $100 an hour. I'm like, sign me up. I want your job, because you're thinking and interacting with this in the new way.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate hearing all that, and I think that is kind of bearing out on in practice too. We are actually hiring right now. We're looking for an office manager, so I might take you up on that charade right there.
Yeah, and I love that. Like, gosh, if I was in an interview as your office manager and I'm hearing what you're saying and the framework of this business, your core values, why you started it, how you started it, and how you started it by design as an office manager, because part of their job going forward is going to be keeping employees happy, accountable, trained, managing everything. Number one, they get to do it also with this flexibility, autonomy, and what have you. I love over communication. I love your number two so much. I use that term all the time. Like, you have to over communicate with clients internally, externally, what have you. And that actually is one of my core values as well. And the third one for us is never suffer in silence. If you suffer in silence, it's on you. It's your responsibility. Like, we have an everything on the table organization here. But just even you hiring and adding to your team, so often that as people grow, the next step is an office manager, professional law firm administrator, CEO, COO, what have you. And these are the questions that good qualified superstar candidates are asking, like, how's this guy think about this thing? How's this guy operating this thing? How do they value their employees? How do they value their time? These are the things they're asking. They are not asking about the KPIs that business owners typically are trying. Oh, we're on a 32.3% growth over the past year. They're like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, how did you do that? Is everybody bloody and bruised and just brutally miserable?
Yeah, I think that's key. Actually, I think I do have a good book recommendation. Was Drive by Daniel Pink. It was a book I read years ago. He said exactly what you just said, is that the really good employees aren't necessarily looking for straight compensation. It's what is the work environment, how are they paid? And it was a really short read that I read in 2014, if I had to guess. But I think that was also kind of a good pillar of like, okay, if for me to do the things, I do the things that you mentioned, right? To going away and going to business conferences and taking vacations and disconnecting and letting someone else kind of do the dirty work, so to speak. It absolutely does take those employees. And, I never want to be in the situation where an employee just gets up and leaves because they're fed up. I think that is a massive failure as a manager. And so that's kind of what's led to, how do I build this business where I would want to work as an employee?
Oh, well said. Oh my goodness. How do I build this business where I would want to work as an employee? Oh my goodness. Wow, that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about, prior and kind of closing and drive-by coaching for maybe some people that are dealing with a lot of turnover. Maybe one of the things I would offer up is ask yourself this question that Andrew just threw on the table for all of us. How do I build a business as an employee? Would you want to work where you're working? Sit in every chair, every role that you're doing, the office manager, receptionist, paralegal, what have you. Look at how much you're paying them and ask yourself why you would want to work there, show up tomorrow. But Andrew, I'd love for you to just give our drive-by coaching or just value bomb or any parting words for people that are dealing with maybe retaining employees, keeping employees. Maybe they have no idea where the hell their employees even are now. Are they happy? Are they not? Are they what have you? They only know their KPIs and their, what they're getting out of them as a ROI. As the employer, what would you leave for people around, some things that have worked really, really well for you in such a short amount of time of building this practice of living your best life as the business owner, as well as creating a live your best life model for your employees, existing and future?
So, my practice area is basically outside general counsel. So I have this conversation a lot with my clients about this. And we have to let go of employees from time to time. And that happens, right? And you're not going to retain every employee forever for a lot of different reasons as life happens. But I think as a manager and a leader, if you're dealing with high turnover or you're dealing with retention problems, or there was a bar here in New Orleans that recently fired every employee. I tell my clients that is absolutely a management problem, and that's not something that's wrong with those people you're bringing in. It could be a policy, it could be how you're treating people. That is something that needs some inner reflection in terms of what are we doing wrong? Are we hiring the wrong person? Are our job ads not accurate enough? Are we not providing enough training? Are we bringing them on board and then kind of shackling them to a desk and a job they don't really want to be in? So when my clients come to me, it's been a while, but a couple of years ago, I had an employee and a client say, "Yeah, I think we want to fire all our employees." And I called them out on that and said, "Look, if you're trying to fire all your employees, that's not an employment issue. That is an employer issue. And why are you doing that? That's a very internal thing, and that can be hard to it can be hard to be introspective like that. But I think that's really what it boils down to. One or two, sure, that happens. But you get much more than that, and that's a leadership and management problem. And I think it can, sometimes it might be easy to figure out. Other times it'd take a lot of soul searching and digging and some help to figure out what can be done. But that needs to start with the manager.
And so this, right? It's not the employees. You've had, you I hear this from people all the time. When I pull into quote unquote the proverbial parking lot, or I have to walk in the Zoom room and I see that I have to meet with my team, I want to smash my head against the wall. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to, I'm like, well, that's kind of a problem. So when you realize that you have high turnover, you don't like your employees, you avoid your employees, and you're willing to take Andrew's advice here and say, okay, yeah, it might be me. It could be me. Any ideas of, I love Drive By Pink. I highly recommend that book. Where would you direct them to? What's worked for you in regards to getting support with your leadership and management?
Yeah, a lot of different coaches. I think Molly, we haven't worked together professionally, but you sound like you're an expert in this area. So I think I would definitely refer them to a business coach who particularly deals with people. It might be some therapy. I've dealt with crises in my time where I've gone to therapists, and for a long time I thought of therapy as a kind of negative thing, and then at a certain point in my life, I went a few times as I was going through a crisis and realized how beautiful that is. So I think that's a really good place to start is maybe investing some money in a professional, and I think that investment could pay off in the sense of I think we all know that hiring and and firing is an expensive turnover is expensive. So investing in a professional that will be critical is really helpful. I do find that sometimes turning to an attorney friend, like kind of a peer, I don't always know if they give enough constructive criticism to really do that. They might just, we don't really want somebody that's just going to reaffirm that the employee is a problem. Right? I think it's useful to find somebody who is willing to have that hard conversation and say, look, you've got high turnover. Are you causing that? And let's, before we go anywhere else, like let's explore that and get into it. Because again, that's not an easy call, and many peers aren't going to want to touch that hot potato, whereas a professional might be a little bit more willing to do that. Or sometimes the light bulb just clicks and says, you know what, let me try this. Let me build this firm that I want to work at, and it's as easy as that. But I think that's, when I talk to people that have high turnover, I can usually hear myself kind of thinking to myself like, well, yeah, that's probably caused by your mindset and how you're treating your people. And even as a friend of those people, I'm not, always willing to kind of go down that path with them, just for, again, it's a touchy subject and it's hard to get into. And if that person is not willing to get into it, then that's maybe the first step is realizing that it takes some introspection to get over that.
Absolutely. I love all that. I always recommend that. And I cannot stress enough. And thank you so much, Andrew, for all the wisdom that you have. I always say, it's a combination of all things, having a coach, business coach, also having some type of therapy, spiritual coach, personal development, and also to your point where you're stepping away from your practice and you're putting yourself in a self-selected timeout for the power of the pause and really do some deep introspection, decompression, and reflection on all of it. And gosh, there's so much from today. I just want to say of just some takeaways I'm taking, and maybe some little exercises, for lack of a better term, homework. People love homework. Ask yourself, what does your lifestyle look like for you? I love Andrew's question. How do I how am I building a business as that employee wants to come to? And what do I have to offer people from a personal connection, professional connection, all that, and then reevaluate your core values. I mean, these are so strong and clear, using and leveraging technology over communication, paying attention to the small things, and living your best life, and get really, really clear with yourself as the leader, as an entrepreneur, as the attorney. What does your best life look like? What does it mean? Specific, measurable, trackable, attainable, and then asking your employees that as well. And, I'm always a huge fan of recommending when you have your weekly, whether you call them level 10 meetings from EO or team meetings or staff meetings, whatever you call them. And if you're not having them, you better, again, going back to that over communication, my highest recommendation to get that into your framework in your weekly planning, check in. How are we doing on our core values? Everybody collectively and individually every single week. Like I can just even imagine, like, are we living our best life right now? Like, what's your best life, Andrew? What's your best life, Susie? What's your best life, Bobby? I know what they are. And I can tell you, and then there's this collaboration and communication, and then I'll get off my soapbox, but like accountability to help each other. Cause you could be like, Andrew, I'm just going to kind of call you out here. You're not really living your best life, because we're on like week 2 right now where you're working 10 hours a day. And I know you're not getting out and doing your morning run. And I know I'm getting emails from you at 2:00 in the morning. And I know it's super important to you that you go to yoga at 5:30 every morning. And that's not happening because I'm getting emails from you. So we got to help each other out here, because we're going to get to a place of burnout, and if not like complete destruction, if we allow this to go on any longer.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I guess that's kind of something I can take away out of this. We each week we do recognize each other for core values. So we kind of spend a minute at our weekly meeting and say, hey, you can kind of reward somebody else for the team for kind of living up to a core value. And we say, hey, Molly, you did this, and that was that core value. Thank you. I think a good tip that we need to kind of work into our processes is, how do we kind of look at that from are we actually living that perspective? So we're rewarding that, but I don't know if we're doing it from the perspective that you just came at. It's like, how do we improve, or how do we kind of back it up? Right. It's easy to reward people, but I think you're looking at it from another perspective that I like, is like, where maybe the question is like, where have we failed in our core values in the past month or something like that?
Yeah.
I think that's a cool way of looking at that. That's it's easy to want to say, yeah, we live up to the 4 core values, and we respect them, and we recognize people when they do them. But then when do you kind of look internally and say, are we not looking up to our core values? And let's come up with an example of things that we can fix that and improve.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because so often what's our number one measuring stick? Client experience, right? We're always worried about getting fired or disappointing or losing or what have you. But this, like putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first, and having each other's backs. Like, we didn't just come up with these because we had, Oprah moment, or we went to a fun workshop about leadership on culture and core values. Like, no, doggone it, we're living these, and we're going to help shine the flashlight on each other when, like, hey, it's important for you to have your vacation time. Or I noticed that you're not going to conferences anymore, and when you go to conferences and come back, it lights us all up. Or you're not exercising or sleeping or eating, you're ditching your kids' softball games, whatever. So critical that there is a definite, cause and effect to all of it. So having each other's backs, like that alone, is like such an amazing employee retention tool, to say, wow, they care. They care I'm going through a divorce. They care I'm a single person. They care that, I'm eating like shit and not exercising and coming in and being grouchy, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. No, I've actually have that situation right now where I have an employee. I've kind of reminded them exactly what you're saying. Hey, you're not really living up to this a little bit. But I think that, I kind of need to figure out as a manager, how do I, not calling that person out in kind of a negative way, but how do I maybe encourage or empower them to do that?
Yeah.
And how do I encourage them to live up to that? Not punish for not doing it, but help do it better, I think, is maybe the mindset there.
Well, as you just said that, like, oh yeah, we kind of have an employee right now. How cool is that? Because at the end of the day, the fundamental human need is to be seen and to be acknowledged. And for you to be like, hey, I've been noticing, not from a place of shame and blame, because intentions are well, but delivery is everything. And when you're like, what's up? Like, whether it's group setting set, but I noticed, and it's so great to be like, wow, like, I love that you're even, I'm on your radar, you're paying attention. Like, I've never had a boss that does that. It's just, again, another just just invaluable retention tool, but also just like a collaboration and bonding tool.
It just feels good too, when the employee does say that, what you just said, wow, no one's ever said that. Thank you so much. That's that's a reward to me too. So,
Yes. Yes.
I think that's a really important part to think about it as well. That's cool.
Yes. Oh, Andrew, gosh, thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
all
It's
your
great being here.
wisdom. And honestly, I just want to acknowledge you and congratulate you. And it makes me so freaking happy that there are attorneys like you that are creating law firms that people just are so excited to work for, work with, and that you are on this trailblazing journey of really what I'm super committed to, of transforming the employee-employer relationship and moving it to one of relationship versus just transaction. And I love when people are so happy, where they say, I have the best leader and I can't wait to go to work for them because of the culture that you've created. So congratulations.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate that, Molly, and look forward to just staying in touch. And thank you again for the insight of, how do we critically look back on all that? I think that's really, I think that's key.
Yes. Oh, okay. All right, listeners, until next time, go out there, empower your employees, make a difference, create law firms that are exciting, that are engaging. And I'm going to rip off and borrow and highlight one of Andrew's, where you are creating a law firm where we are all living our best lives. We've reached the end of another impactful conversation on the Hire and Empower podcast. Whether this was your first episode or you're a longtime listener, I know you can tell I have passion for people. Whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, I understand the situation you're in. Hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, overwhelming, and if that's not enough, it's also time-consuming. My friends, it doesn't have to be this way. There is a team at H&E that has your back. For over 25 years, they've transformed over 4,000 law firms into efficient, effective, profitable assets for their business and made it fun to come to work again. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.